What is up, everybody? Captain Matt here, and today we're going to talk about hand lines and crab pots. They're kind of two extremes. They're going to be the last two things I cover for now in this crabbing arsenal series. There are a few other ways to catch crabs legally in Maryland. Some are commercial. There's like seine nets and sorts of rakes, and maybe if I can catch up with a commercial crabber at some point, I can do a video about that. So let's get at it. Start off with the most basic form of crabbing, which is the hand line, and I've assembled all this equipment here. Most of it's mine, but I didn't put together a hand line. It's pretty self-explanatory. Piece of rope, preferably sinking, but it could be floating depending on weight. If you're using it off a pier, you might need it a little bit longer than if you're using it off a boat, shoreline. In a general sense, you just tie a piece of bait to the end. It could be a chicken neck. Most people would use chicken necks, chicken wings, legs. That's typically what you'll see on a hand line. You can make them a little more trickier. You could put a snood on the end, and we'll go over snoods later. Put a snood on the end. It's an easy way to attach bait off of a bungee cord. Make it easy so you don't have to tie it. You can even put a clam bag. We'll go over those as well. If you want to use fish or clams on your hand lines, with a bag, you can put whatever you want in it. It helps make the bait last longer as well. So next on the list is crab pots. One thing I always hear, crab pot is not the same as a crab trap. A lot of people use that interchangeably. If you're in Maryland, that means a lot because crab pots are not something that recreational crabbers are allowed to use unless you own property on the water line. I believe you're allowed two. You could tie it to your pier off your shore. Otherwise, you must be commercial, and crab pots are restricted to the Chesapeake Bay. I don't know if I'll throw up a little diagram there. So what I mean bay, the main part of the bay. Crab pots are only to be used in the main part of the bay. If you're a boater, and you're entering or leaving a river, you usually see the flood of buoys, sitting outside the rivers. The reason is because crab pots are not allowed to be put in rivers or in any of the minor type bays like Eastern Bay. I'll put up a little map. So it's just the center piece of the Chesapeake Bay is where crab pots are allowed to be used by only commercial folks. So traps are designed to be actively used, meaning crab comes in, crab can leave. If no one came back to the crab trap, it's something you actively use. Crab pot is designed to attract the crabs, let the crabs come in. They can escape, but they're designed to try to make them not escape. There's two types. You have more of your half pot, I think is what's called. It's half the size of a full. So this is a full size crab trap that you would typically see a waterman in Maryland or Delaware use. In Delaware, recreational crabbers are allowed In Delaware, recreational crabbers can use crab pots. I believe it's 2 per person per address. I typically don't crab in Delaware unless I go down to vacation. I'll go down to Rehoboth Bay, Indian River. Sometimes I'll go down real early. The power plant area, typically the water stays a little warmer there. So if you're really jonesing for some crabs, sometimes you can go down there and catch some where all the other places have pretty much died off. Problem with crab pots, in Delaware at least, is the theft. Everyone sees the crab pots, no one's looking around. Some asshole comes and picks up the pot and either steals the pot altogether, or at least empties out the contents, which sucks. I'm sure in Maryland, if a commercial guy saw someone else stealing crab pots, they would take care of the issue themselves. I would not touch a waterman's crab pot by any means. I do have a commercial license. I do not use crab pots. It's not worth my time. I think it's a common question asked, at least on the blue crab forums. I have a LCC, which allows me to use 50 pots. You don't catch, it's not like you leave it in the water for 2 or 3 days. I think it has to be tended every 3 days, and you pull it up and there's like 2 or 3 dozen crabs in there. I don't have any first-hand experience, but what I've seen, watched, and read is, you're lucky if you get 6, 9, 12 would be, I think, amazing. I'm not sure. But in short, you got to have a boat designed for it. These take up a lot of room. During the summer, they get lots of growth and algae, so they're constantly needed cleaned. You have to change the baits. Like I said, I believe they have to be tended every 3 days maximum by DNR rules. So, I doubt the bait lasts more than 2 days. So you got to come through and change the bait. And with the size of the boat and the size of these pots, that's why you see people tending pots are in the big work boats. If I live closer to the water, I might string out. I might throw some of these off or put 10 out, but it's too far out of my way. It's not worth my time. Everyone I've talked to, it's not worth it unless you're running, I think they're TFLs, where you can run 300, 600, 900 of these pots, and that's all you do all day long. It's not really worth the time and effort if I were to go out and get another 6, 9 crabs out of this pot. For me trying to sell them. Recreation, if I was recreation or if I personally wanted to go eat some crabs, it might. It's not where I typically crab because you have to go so far out of the rivers to get to where you can lay them. It's not worth my time. This is like a store-bought. I think I bought this down with a bait shop down in Dewey Beach, Rehoboth Beach somewhere near the inlet. It's vinyl coated. It has a spring latch. You can open it up and get anything that's gone in. All pots need to have, I believe they're called turtle excluders, prevent turtles from coming in your trap, or let them get out. I'm not sure which one it is. You open them up from the bottom. They have a little door here. You can see. You pop them out, put your bait in. Typically, I think like bunker, any cheap type of fish is what's most commonly used in these traps. I know it is in Delaware. I'm not sure in Maryland. It's probably whatever you can get the cheapest. Something that has some bone in it that allows it to last longer. Chicken backs, I think, is slightly different than chicken necks, but with a chicken back, you might have a little less meat, but you have a lot more cartilage and bone. It just helps, the bait getting devoured all at once. This one is, like I said, store-bought. It's more for recreational use. Reason why this is more for commercial use is it has a piece of, this is rebar tied to the bottom. Obviously, if you're dropping these in the main bay, you get lots of currents with a tide going in and out. You need to make sure this stays sunk to the bottom. Something like this over here, great to throw it down in Rehoboth Bay, Indian River. You're gonna get some flow with the tides, but nothing crazy. This rebar helps, so this is another maintenance item. I'm not sure exactly how long this rebar lasts. I'm sure it has to get replaced every so often. Typically, I don't see one on this one. I'm not sure if it's required or not, but typically I hear that you also attach anodes. Maybe that's based off of the type of mesh cage this is. Anodes like you're in your boat that slows down the rusting process. It dissolves and rusts out and takes all that chemical reactions that creates rust, and it absorbs itself and disappears, helping your pots and metal last longer. But the same design as this one, except for it has a top and a bottom. You can see the crabs come in here. If they work their way up to the top, up here, it's a lot harder for them to come out. If they can get in, they can get out. There's no way around it, but it's harder for them to get out once they get in. I think that's it. Just like in Delaware, you have to, I believe it's your address and your name and address on crab pot. Maryland, you'd put your DNR number on there. Again, this is only commercial. Sometimes they require certain colors or can assign you colors. I was reading the rules on Comar and they went over it, but I don't use it, so I'm not going to go overly into it. If you're a commercial crabber and run 900 pots, you probably know way more than I do anyway. It's just more for public information for the less, more amateur type crabbers. All right. So that's gonna be a wrap for today's video. We covered hand lines, we covered crab pots. Two different extremes. One's a little more casual, one's more a little hardcore, especially if you're running 900 pots out there. There are a few other ways to catch crabs legally in Maryland. Maybe in a future video I'll cover them. You know, they have things like seine nets and sorts of rakes and bank traps. I don't have any experience with any of that. I don't have that equipment. But if I can catch up with someone in the future that does have that equipment, I'll definitely make a video out of it. And lastly, the next video I got coming out is all going to be about snap baits, so stay tuned. Until next time, I'll catch you later.